everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Sedition podcast. I'm your host, Nate Brady, alongside my co host, Mike Smith.
How y'all doing today? Hope it's going well.
We have a special podcast today. This is our eighth podcast, and as it turns out, people have said they wanted to see our ugly faces. So we're going to do that
Shocking.
for you.
Absolutely shocking.
I
Shocked and
don't,
appalled.
yeah, I don't like it. You know what? I, I have to listen to the podcast. First of all, I do the editing, and just make sure it's all clean. And I just,
Yep.
like many professionals, hate the sound of my own voice. Now, when I do the editing, I have to also watch video, and it's just, I mean, look at me. You wouldn't want to look at me if it. First of all, it's why this is my head is the reason why I have to wear glasses. Because just the light, the bounce back,
It's bouncing
it's
back. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it's tough. Well, what are you gonna do? How
I'm
was
gonna
your
do what I
weekend?
always do.
What do you do?
I'm gonna text you
Okay,
after listening to our podcast before it goes
sure.
out. I'm gonna say, why do I sound so strange, Nate? Why haven't
Yeah,
we fixed how I sound?
yeah.
And
I
now I
can't.
can do the same thing. I can text you later and say, why do I look like this, Nate?
Yeah,
What you know?
there's nothing I can do about. I've done everything that I can to fix
Yeah.
you, and it just doesn't
Yeah.
work.
The plus side,
Um,
though, is that
yeah.
instead of the YouTube comments that says when are we going to get video,
Yep.
they can start leaving comments that say why do you guys look like that?
Yeah, or when are you going to turn the video off? Because
Yeah,
this,
yeah,
to which I say, you can minimize the player. You still can't. I know it's the year of our Lord 2024. On most phones, you cannot close YouTube and still listen to the
you
audio.
you can, but
Oh,
you have to pay for YouTube Premium.
you do, or there is a way. Actually, I'm not going to say it. I don't want to
No,
get
we're not going to say it, but
demonetized or
if
whatever.
you
We're not.
have
We're not
YouTube
even monetized.
Premium, you can turn the screen off and listen to it. Uh,
Um,
and good luck to you. That's how you
pay
can hide us.
pay your Google overlords, your alphabet overlords, and so you can minimize video. How was your weekend though? What's going on?
It was all right, you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah.
I don't want to steer too far out of the political sphere here, but
No,
I kind
I
of
meant in the
overall.
political sense. How was your
Oh,
weekend?
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I don't have much to say. It was
Okay.
pretty
Quiet.
quiet by
Yeah.
recent history standards. It's
Okay.
relatively quiet.
Yeah, that's fair.
Nobody tried to assassinate anybody. Nobody dropped
Mm,
any bombshell reports saying this, that, the other. Well, when I say anybody, I mean U.S. politics that we focus on.
yeah. Okay. All right. That's fair. There was a rally this weekend,
Okay.
and I think it was Elon Musk's who I want to talk about probably more than anybody wants to hear about him in this episode. But it was Elon Musk's first appearance at I guess, maybe any political rally. Maybe somebody can correct me on that. And there
Right.
he is, here. Yeah, we've got graphics, video to share with you here.
Look at this guy.
Look at this guy.
This has to be fake, right? I've never heard of the app. What's AP? I don't know.
I'm not sure what it stands for.
Why
Oh,
why does he look like Billy Corgan? Can I
oh,
just
wow.
why does he look like Billy Corgan?
Yeah, I can
Can you
see
imagine if
that.
I'm
I can
I
see that
just
a little bit.
I can't not see it.
Are these two of the most? Listen, I got to preface this by saying Uh, I am socially awkward. I think most people in my circle can be a little socially awkward.
Sure.
But are these the two most socially awkward people that we know that we like at least in the public sphere?
Maybe RFK beats them both.
Mm,
Maybe. I
mm.
mean, he does killing bears and stuffing them in his trunk and whatnot.
Using a
And
chainsaw to just
and then
decapitate whales. But but
yeah,
but
and then
but he's
being
like,
like,
get in, guys, let's
yeah,
party. I mean, so I don't know. He feels like maybe he's not as socially awkward. Like he's just like, you know what? There's a whale head on the car. There's a bear in the trunk. Get in. We're
so
going. You
he's
know.
just an inclusive person. He's
Yeah.
not awkward.
Well,
He's
I'm
just
not gonna.
he's doing his own thing and he's willing to have people come along with him.
Sure. Sure.
What is with this flag on cranes thing? Is
I
it
don't.
a 9/11 sort of throwback like
I
that they did at Ground Zero in the World Trade Centers, like they had the flag hanging over the Ground Zero from the cranes. Why are they co-opting that for this Trump rally?
Well, that's what they do. They've co-opted the American flag. I mean, come on. Let's be honest, right?
Okay.
You're driving on the highway. Okay,
Right.
a pickup truck pulls in front of you.
Hmm.
There is a American flag. There's a holster and a giant American flag out of the back of it. There's no question that's a Republican, right?
I want to say yes, but honestly, I've seen some weird stuff coming out of social media showing off the left trying to out weird them. I've seen some Harris Walls
Oh,
flags being flown in the back of
sure,
F-250s or whatever,
sure.
and they're in battleground states. They're in like Michigan or something. And I'm going, one of the well, okay, let me step back. I like to address the right's seeming childish questioning of why don't we see any, big flags or rally signs or what have you from the left? Why don't we see this? And I want to respond to that with, because God, I can't stand any of you people for more than 6 months of the campaign season. I don't want a flag in my yard. I don't want to define myself by your campaign.
Oh my
Okay.
God. Yes, you've never said it.
Oh,
That's
wow.
the truest thing he's ever said. Uh, Elon at this rally, I mean, oh my goodness. He called himself Dark MAGA. I don't even know what that was supposed to mean. I have to be
Yeah.
fair. I didn't watch this. I barely listened to clips of him. I heard him say that the Second Amendment is there to protect the First Amendment, which, okay.
And they're both in place to protect voting rights. I read some of what he had said at the rally, and it's regular run of the mill Elon nonsense.
Right.
It's
Right.
and to be clear, I'm not suggesting that the Second Amendment isn't in place there to protect the First or whatever, but he rolls those sorts of simple statements that have on their face like a hint of truth to them
Right.
into statements that are just bald-faced lies.
Right.
Because they're gonna take away voting next, and I'm like, there's no reality where the Democrats want to take away voting. So I don't see where you get from point A to point B with that line of logic.
Elon Musk's most popular tweets in the last, couple of weeks, maybe months since he's fully endorsed Donald Trump for president, is basically that a vote for Kamala is a vote for the end of America. Like he doesn't. He's not trying to say that this is hyperbole. He is coming out and saying, unless Donald Trump wins the election, it's the end of America, right?
Well, he's actually taken it a step beyond that. You'll notice in the picture here, he's wearing his Occupy Mars t-shirt, which of course is related to his SpaceX company. And,
Sure.
and one of his goals there is to have multiplanetary society. And it's basically, the same idea as having more children, an heir and a spare sort of deal. So if there's this planetary scale disaster that wipes out humanity on a planet, there's more planets that we inhabit that we can retake or what have you, and we can keep the civilization we have, or the very least the species, I'm not sure if that's the right word, but the human existence alive.
Right.
And so he has gone so far as to say that a vote for Kamala is a vote sort of like against humanity, like the existence of humans. And it's because, again, he starts with something that seems like on its face like it could be sort of true, and it ties to the next and the next, and by the end of the string, he's claiming that a vote for Kamala is going to vote to wipe out human existence.
Right. Yeah. And you brought up something funny, is like, okay, the spare kid. And maybe that's why he keeps trying to have. I mean, doesn't he have 12 kids or something like that, and they all hate him? I mean, it's some high number of kids. I don't know if they all hate him. I'm guessing.
It's a lot of children, and the ones that are adults have at least mainly come out publicly saying that he's not a good father and not involved in their lives. Some of them more, full-throatedly than the others.
Right.
But does sort of seem like he doesn't spend enough time with his children, and they suffer for it.
Well, do they?
Although, if they'd spend time with him, oh,
There's an argument to be made. Yeah, that the less time he spends. So he runs Twitter, he runs Tesla, he runs SpaceX. I don't know. Is he still building tunnels under Vegas? I don't know.
that
So,
company still exists as far as I'm aware, but I don't believe that they are doing anything.
that sounds right. So just going back to the, I guess Elon's. Oh, before I didn't even want to call him Elon for that. I've messed up. Can we start the episode over? I wanted to call him what Donald Trump called him. Did you hear about this?
I read it. I didn't hear it, so I want to hear the pronunciation. Yeah, is it Elanya?
Elanya. He
Alania,
come
right?
on.
Because it's like Melania, his wife, but
Wow.
it's Elon.
Wow. So yeah, I meant to call him. I meant to call him that.
Elania.
But I guess I'll stick with Elon for now, or Melon, as some like to call him without having to say his name. So his most famous or celebrated tweets the last couple of weeks have been that whole the destruction of America unless you vote for Kamala Harris. But here on the screen is a tweet from Elon, not many months prior, where X is going to start suspending people that are deliberately spreading fake news in order to seek engagement. Engagement farming will not be tolerated anymore. So I ask, as Elon passes 200 million viewers on X, or followers on X, is this working? Is this policy in place? What's happening here?
Didn't we have, I think, in episode 2 or 3 of the podcast, we went into this idea of engagement farming, or rage engagement.
Yeah, we talked about social media echo chambers. That's a good call.
Echo chambers, exactly.
That's what good podcasters are supposed to do, by the way. We're supposed to call back to previous episodes, so make sure you listen to everything in our catalog. So really great work there.
Yeah, go back and take a listen. I thought that was a fascinating exploration of that. But no, I mean, we were talking about it, I guess a week or two, whenever that was, and saying how, if anything, this sort of thing is worse now. Like the drive to do engagement farming, I guess is what they're calling it, is not only still there, but I would argue stronger now that they're doing profit sharing based on your engagement levels.
Of course it is. Yeah.
How am I to believe you're going to end engagement farming if you're going to pay me for farming engagement?
Right.
Like that doesn't add up in any logical way. No sane person sees those two things as working together.
Let's hey, I got Twitter up here, right? Let's
sure.
Let's not go into the oh my goodness. Anonymous, by the way. If you guys aren't following Anonymous on Twitter, that's some fun stuff. But I was, my For You is usually nothing but Elon tweets, right? Like and actually surprisingly right now, that's not the case, but I was almost sure, like, if I had just come here and scrolled for a little bit, maybe he's quiet today. I wanted to go over to his profile. Oh, here we go. Okay, so here's some Elon stuff. Let's see what this is. I don't even want to read it. But my point was, I wanted to come over to Elon's. I don't even want to read it. We're going to get to this pinned tweet in a second because this is huge. But the obvious bias now in the owner of probably the biggest social media platform, right? I mean, other than Facebook, is now clearly biased. He's going to the rallies of. He's clearly biased on one side, and his tweets. I don't know what else to call them. Posts, I guess. They prove it. By the way, if you don't know, Doge Designer is just Elon's alt. He retweets this guy more than anybody on X. But I mean, Trump must win. It's all it is. It's just his whole profile, 200 million viewers. It's misinformation. It's disinformation. It's Trump must win. All the other voices on it. This is the most prominent voice on the public town square, and it's all Trump must win nonsense.
Yeah.
So I did want to go over his pin tweet and talk a little bit about this. So he says here, sign our petition to support the Constitution. Also earn $47 for every person you refer to sign the petition if they're in a swing state. So goal is to get 1 million voters in swing states to show support for free speech and the right to bear arms.
Okay. Just without knowing anything else about
Okay,
this.
go ahead. Go ahead.
What the hell is this?
Um,
I mean, why do I need to sign a petition for 2 amendments that currently exist in the Constitution? I don't understand.
well, so you're right.
Asking.
So it's like, well, why would that even be a thing, right? Like, why pay people for
Right,
that? Why do
right.
whatever? So there's clearly something else going on here, right?
Right.
And what that is the petition is tightly linked to voter registration in swing states. So this can be.
What do you mean tightly linked? What does that mean?
So it means that what his goal is here is to get people in swing states to register to vote. That's what he's trying to do.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, so far, if that's it, if that's as deep as this rabbit hole goes, don't make that gesture, please.
Well,
then it's okay, right?
Well,
because we should be trying, and this is a tenet of, I think, the Democrat Party more than the Republicans, but we strive to get everybody to vote. We want you to vote. If you vote against us, we still want you to vote.
Now,
whereas
would
the
you
Republicans
say
don't want you to vote? So this is
okay?
a breath of fresh air.
A breath of fresh air. So we have a little issue though. Would you say that paying people to register to vote, or with the underlying insinuation that come here, register as a Republican, and I'm going to hand you $47?
Now, does he go so far as to do that? I don't see an insinuation here that says vote Republican and you'll get $50.
But that's it though. I mean, it's an indirect influence. It's obviously protect the Constitution. The right to bear arms. It's indirectly incentivizing voter registration through a cash incentive.
I see the intent there. Okay. I see what you're getting at. I don't think it's quite as nefarious at this point. Maybe there's more. But I mean, I don't see this really as any different from saying, man, I don't want to go to the trope, but it's hard to imagine, a very wealthy Democrat. So I guess I'm going to do it. Soros saying,
oh, jeez.
I'll bus you to the polling places or whatever, which we've tried in the past. In some states, some precincts and stuff, that's illegal. They consider that vote tampering, or what's the actual? It's maybe vote tampering. I don't really remember, but they won't let you, bring water to people who are standing in the polling line, and they won't let you bring food. They won't let you drop people off unless you're a certified taxi cab service or a bus or what have you. You can't rent a bus and have a driver that takes everybody from your Nana's nursing home down to the polling place, because that's illegal.
Yeah.
So
well,
us trying to do, I say us, it's always Democrats who are trying to energize voters, trying to get voters to polling places, get them to vote.
Yeah.
Regardless of their voting preference. That's where it is. So I don't really see this as much different from that.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're
okay.
You're not wrong. I think because it is there is a federal law that prohibits payments for voter registration or voting at all. I think
it's just voting. I think that you can literally pay people to register.
You cannot.
Can you not?
I don't think so. You know what? We can. Jamie, I keep forgetting we don't have a freaking Jamie. We don't have anyone to do this for me. As far as I understand,
right.
There is a federal law that prohibits both payments for voter registration and voting in federal elections.
Okay. All right. Let us know in the comments which one of us is wrong.
Yeah. While financial incentives for signing petitions is legal. So that's where
and polls and things like that. Because you get push polls.
You get a $5 gift card to Starbucks or whatever. I get that all the time. Somebody stops me. They're like, "Will you do this?" And we'll buy your coffee or whatever. And sure. But the obvious here, I think the obvious thing that's going on here is it's tightly coupled. Like,
Right.
okay, obviously what this means. And by the way, this is funded by Musk's America pack or whatever
His pack.
the super
Yeah.
pack is. Um, so yeah, so I mean, my thoughts on this are, well, first of all, if this for some reason made it all the way to the Supreme Court wouldn't even hear it, or they would say no, this is totally legal. Well, you say there's nothing, you don't think there's anything nefarious here. I will
Well,
always.
hold on.
Okay, okay,
What I
I'll
was
let you
saying
correct
is,
yourself.
what I'm saying is that on its face, getting people to petition, say the petition is like a pledge to vote or something. Like I don't have a problem with that. Like at its crux. Now, of course, there's context, there's nuance involved. This is like you pointed out. This is Elon Musk using his super PAC to try and accomplish this giant petition of people to try and rally voters. That's literally what it is, and it's not difficult to see how he would like those voters to vote. It's very plain that he wants more Republican voters, particularly in swing states. He even goes so far as to, highlight that requirement. So, is it particularly nefarious? Not really, but also it's very, very see through. You can see exactly what he's playing at here. And it's not surprising, I don't think, to anybody who's been following the way in which Elon Musk operates for the past few years. This is his MO of, I'm just going to do something, whether it's illegal or not, and try to move forward my goals, and we'll deal with the repercussions or not later. It's a very Trumpian thing to do, to be frank. That's how Trump ran his presidency, and he's been running his campaigns. So I understand why they see a lot of each other in each other,
Yeah.
and they can definitely bolster this campaign with this, more of the same, but from a different guy who has a lot of money.
I mean, okay. You're not wrong. Um, I just by the way, anything that Elon Musk says or does, I think is nefarious. You have to prove it's guilty until proven innocent, in my opinion. So
I
he's earned
Yeah,
that. He's
yeah.
earned that.
No, I agree that, like I said, the underpinnings for this push of his is transparent. You can see right through it. You know that he's just trying to win Republican votes in swing states, and that's it's
So
pretty bad, honestly.
So another thing that happened kind of in relation to this is that, as you can see here, ex-owner
Yeah,
Elon Musk seized the America username on the platform, using the account to advocate for former President Trump, against Vice President Harris in the 2024 election. I mean,
that's it's his site, so he can do whatever he wants. But man, that is just so Snidely Whiplash-esque. It's just you're clearly a villain in some cartoon out of the
I
1940s.
mean, right? This is some Lex Luthor stuff, though, right? I mean,
Well, like dumb Lex Luthor, but sure.
dumb Lex Luthor. Okay, I mean
Well,
that's
and let's talk about it in terms of Twitter, because I do think that it's important. If you don't use Twitter, this is the @America handle. When Twitter was at the height of its user base and it had people from all over the world signing up for it, and millions and millions of users, the handle was the uniqueness constraint. Those were the things that were coveted before the blue check marks. It was like, oh, you have this short, direct handle that no one else can lay claim to. That's who you are as a person. And in fact, the history there is funny because somebody registered a Donald Trump one before he signed up, which is why he had to sign up as the real Donald Trump. So I mean,
right.
there's history and context there that's very interesting. But America, clearly a very unique, it has importance to it under the name. And so having that handle, possibly worth money. I mean, I don't know.
I
You
guaranteed
could
it is.
probably sell the account to someone
Yeah,
for an amount, a
which violates, by
non-trivial
the
amount of money.
way, violates X's policies that you can't sell accounts.
Of
But
course not. But
obviously, yeah.
More
But
people do.
yeah, oh sure they do. But I mean, answer me this, okay? You say
All right.
it's Elon's platform, right? It's and
Yeah.
you're not wrong, right?
Right.
This
Right.
is Elon's business. If he wants to do that, fine, let him do that.
Sure.
Um, he takes over the POTUS account and
And
just
yeah, and just starts ghost tweeting stuff
yeah.
for
I
fun.
mean,
Yeah, no,
that
I
can't
think
be
that
legal.
I don't know. There's certainly an argument to be made for an impersonating an official officer,
Sure.
uh, which I mean, you could probably make that claim in court, but I also don't think that Elon, God, I'm going to regret this. I don't think that Elon's stupid enough to attempt that.
Oh, I'm
But
glad you just put that into the universe so that we
yeah,
can we can
and
I
the
can
monkey
clip
claw
this with
bends
the
yet another
yeah
finger. Yeah,
yeah, and I can clip this with the Curb Your Enthusiasm. Dun 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 dun.
yeah.
Dun.
There you go.
So you know what? I hope it happens. I hope that's the case, where he is stupid enough to do something like that. But you know, we talked about Tina Peters last episode
Yeah,
and
yeah.
her getting 9 years right for
Right.
election interference. Basically, I mean,
Yeah.
she did some
She
she did
was she was changing votes though.
yeah,
I
she
mean,
did
like,
some serious things. But at what point do you look at what Elon is doing? You look at the disinformation that he's spreading and
right.
say that this is illegal election interference. Like, at what point do you stop and say enough is enough with this? And I need to preface that by saying every single right wing person, if they ever got this far or heard this clip, will say, oh my God, here it is again. The libs are trying to steal our freedom of speech. So where do we draw the line?
Right. So I mean, like, the thing about Twitter that's interesting to me is that it's run by, I mean, the content that's generated there is generally generated by users, not
Right.
like one big figurehead or anything like
Sure.
that. But on in the same sense, they're the readers of the site, but they're also producing the content. But Elon and a few, huge names with tons of followers do get to set temperatures. They get to say things into this, you know, I don't want to call it an echo chamber, into this social
It's
media site. And it does, though, the things that he says reaches a lot of eyes and ears, and they, whether they internalize it or not, they're hearing his position on things. And so I like think back to, Rupert Murdoch's Fox News, and the same thing where he owns this news network and he basically sets the tone for what news goes out, and all of his listeners, watchers, etc., consume what he says or what his station produces, I should say, and that moves the needle. So yeah, free speech, but also, like, we just need to get off of these you know uh sources of information that have this much power.
so so
That's the biggest problem, is we don't have enough
well, it almost sounds like you're
democratization.
yeah, it almost sounds like you're talking about like an antitrust lawsuit. Like he's monopolizing the way that information is getting to people, and in this particular case of the both the election and the thing I'm about to share, has serious and dire consequences. And I'm going to share a story that has been hitting the news a lot lately, and as everybody probably knows by now, especially if you listen to us, is the misinformation. Or I keep saying the difference between disinformation and misinformation, as I understand it, is that disinformation is purposely spreading information that is not true. So I need to keep calling this what it is, and this is disinformation from Elon Musk and other people on the right on X. It's starting to cost people their livelihood. Okay,
Sure.
so
Yeah.
I mean, where do you? Bradley Boone, the assistant fire chief of Pensacola, took to Facebook and he said, I don't have time anymore to fight all of these rumors, and it's ridiculous. They're saying we're blocking supplies to people. They're saying FEMA's not here. They're saying, stop if you see a FEMA official, question them, and it's like these people are being threatened now who are
Yeah,
trying to save lives. At what point? Uh, this is a major problem.
I agree. And unfortunately, the remedies for this are slow. So I'm remembering Alex Jones and his podcast, rated, whatever you want to call it, his show that he would
Yeah,
run.
yeah.
I can't even
We
remember
don't
the
have
name of
to. I know the name of it. We don't even have to say
Okay,
it.
good.
Yeah,
But he was running for years on disinformation campaigns because
sure.
his base of listeners ate it up. I mean,
Right.
that was their favorite food.
Yeah.
And so, well, I'm not going to stop doing that if it's going to earn me, dollars and dollars and dollars
Right.
and notoriety and all of the things that they care about. While the mechanisms that remedy that was a lawsuit in which he owes $1.5 billion or
Right.
whatever it is to the families who he spread this disinformation about and ultimately harmed in the same way. And so FEMA, this guy, there are court remedies that are available for these things, but they're not going to get fixed today. They're not going
No.
to get fixed next year. They're
No.
going to be in court litigating this for years to come at a real cost to them. No one's going to do this work pro bono by and large, unless it's a slam dunk and they know that they can get their
Sure.
cut. But this is a hard, thing to fight. Like he's saying, he doesn't have the energy, and frankly, neither do we. We
Right.
want to help him.
Right.
I have a hard enough time arguing with my in-laws about what is real and what is not. How am I supposed to change the minds? How are any of us supposed to change the minds of Elon Musk's 200 million followers?
Right. I mean,
I think that's what you're getting at. Is
no,
that
that
he's got
is.
he's at the town square, like you said, but he's the only one with a PA system.
He's got I mean, there are several other accounts on Twitter, and this is where we're rolling very nicely. This is unscripted. We're rolling very nicely into all of the things that I wanted to cover today. He is the only guy with that size of a following that not only has a megaphone, but he also controls behind the scenes whether or not you can hear him and hear the dissenting voices as well. So
Right. He's like everybody gets a megaphone, and then in subtext, he gets to determine what their max volume is.
yeah, exactly that.
So his is always at max,
Yeah.
and the people he agrees with, they get a volume boost, but not as big as his. And then the dissenters, the people, the deplorables, I forget,
Yeah.
they get their megaphone either turned down or the batteries are dead or something.
Right. And so this brings me into my next topic on this, which is him turning down that megaphone. And I want to preface this by saying we don't make any money from doing this podcast. This is something that I don't want to say enjoy doing, because a lot of the times the topics are not very enjoyable. But, Mike and I have been talking politics together for like the last decade.
At least.
At least. And we finally were like, yeah, we're two white guys. We're the only right path forward is to start a podcast, right? So yeah, we're doing that because we're having fun. So I just want to point that out by saying we don't have any ads right now. We're not monetizing this in any way. We have no goals of this being
Right.
The thing that we do instead of our regular jobs.
Right. You haven't seen sponsorships. You haven't seen anything like that.
So that's not our goal here, and I want to make sure I preface what's
right.
the follow here.
We're both very passionate about politics
right.
in the United States in particular, but also worldwide. And we think that we have a voice that a lot of people who might be either apolitical or lean left would want to hear. A lot of ideas, a lot of, just like we do a lot of exercises, where we're thinking about the current landscape and the potential future landscape. And
yeah,
I think that it's just an interesting thing that we're both passionate about.
So I wanted to make sure I got that out of the way before I get into this next piece. Over the weekend, something happened on Twitter that I was not aware was actually happening. So if you remember back when Jack Dorsey was running Twitter, there was this whole idea of shadow banning. In fact, there were even dedicated sites where you could go and you could put your handle in and you could see like, oh, wait a minute, my account is not being, unbeknownst to me, right? My account is not being shared with other people. If they type...
So shadow bans, just because I'm not on the Twitter thing, so... But this is like you still can post and interact.
You can
like
do
normal.
Everything looks the same to you, okay? But if so, let's say I posted something with the hashtag election 2024. Okay.
Okay.
And then you went and you searched the hashtag election 2024. Okay.
Yeah.
My account would not come up if I was shadow banned. So you would scroll
Okay.
through like, oh, okay, here's all these accounts that are sharing. I'll go look at them. I'll go whatever. I can retweet this.
But
My account wouldn't come up.
if you replied to a post of mine, I would
You
still
would
see
you
it.
would still get
So
the notification,
even
right?
if I wasn't following you or
Yes,
anything.
yes,
So interactions would still work,
that would
but
still work.
organic messaging into the Twitterverse,
Yes,
you'd be squelched on.
yes. So, uh, this was for many people, and understandably so, an issue with the last regime of Twitter, if you will. Okay,
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm being shadow banned. I don't know why I'm being shadow banned. Is there something I can do to correct this so that my account does not get this imaginary label? And for the most part, shadow bans generally disappeared over the course of a couple of days or so, and then
So they were like, you triggered something in the
yeah, yeah,
system, some
some
automatic
spam thing or something, but it was
Okay. And
generally
then they put
from
you
our
on like
right.
yeah, like a 3-day
Yeah, you weren't on
squelch or
some watch list or something like that we know of. But I'm sure there were other things going on. Elon Musk took he didn't like that, right? And part of his reason, this is from his words, paraphrasing of course, of buying Twitter is to bring free speech back to the platform. In other words, to give everybody a voice. And unfortunately, what that means for a lot of us is that suddenly I'm seeing a lot more people with Nazi views in my For You feed, which let me tell you is definitely not for me. So
that was the reason I left.
that's a reason why a lot of people are on Blue Sky instead, right? Like or Threads or wherever else people have gone to, or even unfortunately back to Facebook. But if Facebook's your thing, that's fine. So
that was the reason I left Facebook before Twitter. There's too many Nazis there too.
So Elon Musk thing is let's bring free speech back to Twitter. Okay, he does that. All of a sudden we hear all these terrible voices. Okay. Suddenly, okay, this is what happened this weekend. I was getting great engagement. Okay, I love talking. Okay, I love talking with people. I love having political conversations. I love arguing. I love debating. I love just having these conversations with people.
I've been with Nate at a Starbucks. This all checks out. He'll argue with anybody, anywhere, at any time,
not argue
for any reason.
but like
not argue.
Yeah,
he'll
yeah,
have
but like
a lively debate.
Right. And so this weekend, all of a sudden, I was getting like 0 notifications. I went from like the Friday, 80 notifications, and I'm like, oh wow, this is great. Interacting with everybody, that's awesome. And yes, it is good for the podcast too, right? It's good for the blog. It's good for the podcast. Like, get ears on it. Get
Full
people to our page.
disclosure: the more people that know about us, the more people will listen to us. So
Right.
That's good for us.
Exactly. And so come Saturday, that had completely disappeared. And I was like, okay, I did have like a viral tweet or something, and that was fine. So for a moment, I'm thinking this is just, organic, the organic just ebb and flow of, right. And so then I was doing a little research into it, and I found this probable spam idea. And this is basically that there is now a new thing on Twitter where you can get flagged as an account who is releasing probable spam for whatever reason. And so I said, that's interesting. Like, let me look into this. So I switched to my personal account, and I went to a thread that I was having a conversation in, and I clicked on that thread, and I knew I didn't have to dig very far. It wasn't like 5,000 replies. There was like 10 replies on it, and I couldn't see the Blue Sedition Twitter handle anywhere in it until I scrolled down to the bottom and I clicked. There's a link that says show probable spam, and sure enough, my reply, which was not spam at all, it was adding, I believe, to the discourse. There it was. Then I went on and I checked.
Just typed it, right? I mean, this isn't. We don't have any bots or anything running for it. This is you on your phone.
No, I don't use. Yeah. No, this is me.
Blue
like
Sedition account.
Yeah.
Just writing a response to somebody.
And it's not like I'm sharing like links to the blog. No, I'm literally talking to people. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm like aggressively doing like marketing or anything. I'm like having conversations. And then I checked another thread and another thread and another thread, and suddenly all of our accounts or all of our replies are behind this probable spam thing. And so I'm still getting likes, And then I realized all of the likes, like, yeah, I got 4 likes on this, but only 10 views. Where before I was getting like, oh, 1,000 views, but maybe 8 likes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It turns out that the only people that were seeing us automatically were the people who were following the account. So people who don't follow the account don't really have a chance to discover your account unless they click that probable spam button. And this happened because, well, what I believe is I have been a very loud dissenting voice against Elon Musk. Anytime Elon Musk posts something that I think is ridiculous, I call him out on his absolute nonsense. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then suddenly this starts happening. So users, I brought it up, users started sharing links. Hey, this is what's happening. It's happening to me too. And now all of a sudden I'm seeing all of these left-leaning voices are being hidden behind probable spam. And so, and for us, it happened October surprise. It happened like right in the beginning of October. And so it makes you wonder, is this thing being done on purpose by Elon Musk to make sure his microphone is reaching everybody and the dissenting voices are not? So I can't go there and say this is bullshit. This story about FEMA is wrong. You can't see that unless you scroll all the way down and hit probable spam. But I want to make one more point. I know I'm running out of wind here. Is that as I mentioned, and as you can see from us sharing the Twitter back and forth, have a blue check mark next to my name. And by the way, I've made fun of the blue check marks in the past. I think you're an idiot if you pay for Twitter. I'm sorry if you're a follower of the show. I think you're an idiot. I think I'm an idiot. Don't pay for Twitter. It's stupid. But one of the reasons for paying for Twitter is like their second bullet point in why I pay for Twitter is that you get boosted reply engagement. But now my tweets, my replies, it's going blue checks that pay, people that don't pay, me under probable spam, right? So I'm paying $8 for Twitter, as are some of our left-leaning friends that have chimed in. They're paying for Twitter, and their accounts are getting hidden.
Is there any recourse to that? I mean, is there?
What can you do?
Well, that's what I'm asking.
I mean, contact the Better Business Bureau. I mean,
I mean, like,
what kind of
tools?
recourse?
Do they have like a report a problem feature that you can try and engage with, or
possibly? And it's another thing for me. Some people have been saying this has been happening to them for a while for our accounts, which again, I don't give a shit. I'd rather build up a presence on Blue Sky and eventually just drop Twitter altogether. I'm on Twitter mostly because I love arguing with these idiots, but I also need to see what these idiots are talking about. We talked about echo chambers and Blue Sky. As much as I love it, I don't see a lot of what Elon's talking about. A lot of of that, and I just need to see it because that's part of what I'm. I need to listen to.
I think that Aaron Rapar made the same sort of statement where he's posting on everything. He prefers Blue Sky, but he's like, look, in all honesty, I cover Trump and the right wing and the crazies, and I have to be on Twitter because that's where they engage. That's where I see these things firsthand. And then I can post them everywhere, but I have to be on Twitter. I can't just walk away from that at the moment, which makes sense.
Right.
But unfortunately, it sounds like you're in one of these sort of trapped situations where you can't even get the things you post to the people who wants to see it or might want to see it. That's one of the other problems, is that you said that your followers, the Blue Sedition podcast followers on Twitter, can see what you write, but basically no one else can. So how do you even grow a brand that way?
Right.
If you're behind this probable spam blocking thing.
Yeah, it like you have to find other creative ways to try and grow your account, but that's not what this town square is supposed to be like.
Right. Yeah, it's not even how it really works. So you may not have the answer to this. I'm just thinking up these things off the top of my head. But like, if you have a follower, or maybe, well, let's just start with the follower, and they retweet one of your posts, is it possible that even shows up to people who aren't followers of yours?
That's a really good question.
Will their followers see it?
That's a really good question. And further, does it mean that they're at the risk of being
right? Are they going to, is it some contagion that they need to be worried about? on this Twitter site. It's an interesting issue. I wish it was happening to somebody else.
Right. Yeah.
There's somebody bigger, I think is the main thing, is that, we're a relatively small and new voice. And so squelching us this early means that our ability to grow is, you know, night and day harder than everything else.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you were to do this to, I don't know, who's a prominent left poster, maybe Aaron Rapar as an
Right.
example,
Right. Right.
then, well, not only would he write about it, but eventually some news network would pick up on it. And then it would be a big story about how Elon's, doing this purposefully, it seems. We don't
Would
obviously
it
have all
matter?
the evidence to do. Well, I don't know.
Yeah, I
I
mean
think,
that's it would it be fake news? Would it be that's not how we do it? Would it be who cares? What are you going to do about it? That seems to be the kind of cycle that we're in right now. It's like it's either fake news or who cares anymore. What are you going to do about it?
yeah.
You
Well, I
know?
mean, that's, in my opinion, that's part of the reason why I think Twitter is failing. It's a slow burn, but I do think that with this same stewardship and no change in direction, I think that Twitter's headed for just, you know, being a new 4chan. And so,
I'm truly excited for the end of Twitter. There was some kind of funny talk about Mark Cuban buying Twitter, which
yeah, I heard of that.
yeah, and I'll tell you what I don't want. Well, secretly I do want, but what I don't want is for Mark Cuban to buy Twitter and then just push it back in the other direction. But what I do want is Nazis to not spread that bullshit. I mean, there's a line. There's that whole free speech line that we have to talk
Yeah,
about. But first of all, the guy who's claiming he bought it for the free speech thing is just lying about that. That's just bullshit. Like,
real, yeah.
yeah.
I
So
mean, it was, again, it was a farce. Just, it was a public image thing that he wanted to have this pretense that he was doing some public good.
right,
And because he's a billionaire, every news network ran with that story as a given instead of digging into it even a little bit.
right.
So they're like, Elon Musk is out there trying to protect free speech, and that's sort of been his labeling as such since. And it's the worst veneer ever.
Yeah,
It's see through.
yeah.
Everyone can see
Of
through it,
course.
but now nobody cares. So
I'm with you though. I'm rooting for the end of Twitter unless somehow it gets picked up by somebody else and becomes kind of that. Because I mean, it was for a while there was a sweet spot there where I was following the things that I enjoy, baseball
yeah,
and technology and politics and stuff,
yeah,
and it wasn't the constant uh, disinformation pipeline that it is today.
right. And I think with the older systems, with the shadow bans and whatnot, I think that that was more of a, well, I'd like to think that that was more of a punitive measure for people who were trying to do things deliberately. We mentioned it earlier in the episode, the difference between disinformation and misinformation. I think that a lot of people on, like, I'm going to use this just as a trope because it's my family and how they act. But I think a lot of people on Facebook tend to post a lot of misinformation because they are misinformed, not because that they are, you know, uh, an evil presence or somebody who's looking to sow, disinformation. Whereas on Twitter, it's become clear that I don't think any of the actors involved here are doing this naively. They are actively spreading information that is incorrect in the hopes of confusing the matter that they're talking about, usually elections or science or climate science or vaccines and just like all
Right.
these things.
Right.
And the goal is what it has always been. If you sow enough of this disinformation into the zeitgeist, then people are unsure. You have people who otherwise are well meaning asking questions like, well, can we trust that vaccines are good? Or can we trust that the government is acting in our best interest? Can we trust that yada yada yada? And then that in and of itself is them winning the battle because they've made you question things that you know to be true or false beforehand.
Yeah. Exactly. Man.
So
Um,
it's a, I mean, it's a dire situation.
it
It's
is. I mean, like
very,
you said, it's going to take years. And, the problem with taking years to fix it is while we're trying to fix it, he
yeah.
can remain that loud dissenting voice that might sway the public opinion on not fixing it, you know?
Especially if, in my view, and I'm hoping for this, normal people get off Twitter. I don't want my parents, I don't want any of my relatives being
Oh,
on
yeah.
Twitter
No, no
because
way.
it's just this
Yeah.
misinformation, disinformation cesspool. But if you can get the normals away from it, well, okay, maybe his reach isn't that grand anymore, and he won't be able to cause that chaos and confusion. We'll hold the phone
Yeah.
because your main sources of media, your New York Times and everything, are reporting on things that happen on Twitter as if it's news. And so he could claim all sorts of crazy stuff in his Twitterverse with his Nazi friends and all that other stuff. And if it doesn't get out, well, that's not the worst thing in the world. Again, it's just 4chan. Nobody cares. But if you have the New York Times writing, leads along the lines of Elon Musk is skeptical about vaccines. I'm not saying that's what he said, but something to like that. Well, now you've given credence to it, and that's worse. Stop spreading it like that.
Yeah.
It's just so disheartening
I know.
to
I
to
know.
see people who are otherwise well-meaning and good-natured Americans falling victim to this sort of grift.
And I mean that I think that's a lot of what's going on with the FEMA thing, with everything else, especially
Mm-hmm.
the election as well, is that these normal people. I mean, the stuff that came out about Truth Social, by the way, over the weekend is just amazing. Of the numbers that are being compiled of how much money Truth Social users are losing
Oh
to
yeah, yeah, yeah,
scams. I mean, it just goes. These people are vulnerable. They are easily
yeah.
fooled. They are, and that's what's happening, and it's hurting them, it's hurting themselves, and it's hurting others.
And they're curated to that. They're like, I
Right?
don't I don't want to repurpose the word, but we'll say they're groomed to that. That's their
Yeah,
whole point, is
yeah,
that they've got not a lot of money, I would assume, but they're losing it in droves
right.
because they're all seemingly naive or gullible or
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah. So I don't know where this goes from here. I wish we had answers for this,
Yeah,
but it's really hard to tell. And it certainly, if you push too hard, you'll get those right. You won't get the right wingers on your side for this because it'll be, oh my god, my free
no.
speech no matter what you do. So I really don't know what the answer is, but I fear that not only is the answer not going to come in a meaningful amount of time to stop more damage. I don't know
Yeah.
that it ever. I don't know that we're going to
No,
get
I
on.
mean, there was that, I think that as a society, we accepted a lot of things for a very long time. Like we would say, if you're a scientist, you probably are smarter than me. Like if you're a real scientist in the thick of it studying something, I assume you're more intelligent than me. Or at the very least, you're more informed about that particular topic than I am. Like
Right,
we just, I think collectively, Americans understood that.
right,
And then at some point, and I think it was around the time that we started actually having discourse about global warming, that your average Joe stopped believing that. They're like, this guy doesn't know more than me. And I'm like, he's a scientist who studied this his entire life. You're some guy, right? How do you have the hubris to say that you know more about this topic than him because you Googled it for 5 minutes? And that once that was gone, we've lost it all. And then it's like you're saying, now we're like, well, we don't trust FEMA. And you're like, but why? Why wouldn't you trust this organization that has been at hurricane recovery and assistance programs for decades and decades and decades, and they've been doing it as like their their one driving thing that they do, and you don't believe it anymore? How did that happen? How does so many Americans get to that point? I
I
mean, the hell with fixing it. I want to know how your brain took you to this point where you think that you know more than any
Well,
professional
it's
on a
it's
given matter.
to be fair, it's not that they always. This is the problem with Elon Musk and other very large personalities is
Okay.
that they convince these people that the people in charge don't know more. It's not necessarily that
Right.
Joe sitting at home thinks he knows more, but then he goes and watches Andrew Tate and he's like, oh, well, obviously this guy who's got a bunch of cars and women and who's railing against, COVID vaccines.
Yeah.
Well, clearly he knows more than I do. And he's very convincingly explaining to me why, based on a series of logical fallacies, this scientist doesn't know what he's talking about.
Right.
Who am I
Right.
going to believe? You know?
What was the name of that one woman who was she was a celebrity and she rallied against vaccines for so long, claiming that they caused autism
Jenny
in children?
McCarthy.
McCarthy, thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
It's the same thing. I'm like,
Yeah.
you're an actress and you've got not a brain cell in your head as far as I can tell, but people are believing you over scientists who spent their entire lives developing and iterating these vaccines to keep people healthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just go, there's like, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. Because
Well,
how do you get
I
to
mean,
that
it
point?
is. Listen, I remember when I was. I don't want to go off the rails on conspiracy theories, but I remember
Okay,
when
we
I
are
was younger.
dangerously close to that.
We are, and I'm going to bring up a conspiracy theory, but but
Okay.
it speaks to. Listen, I think I'm a smart guy. I think I can understand when somebody knows something more than me, and I just have to shut up and listen. Okay.
Right.
When I was growing up, I was in my early 20s, I think, when a funny thing happened on the way to the moon came out. Do you remember that, like, global thing? I don't know if it was YouTube or if it was a documentary, but it was a thing called a funny thing happened on the way to the moon. And it was a conspiracy theory documentary about how we didn't go to the moon. And it was so convincingly put together that there was a couple of years where I'm like, well, there's no freaking way we went to the moon, right? But it was a documentary that was not only using a number of logical fallacies, but it
Yeah.
was framed in such a way that a regular thinking person would go, oh wow, yeah, like that actually makes a lot of sense. And that's what these people are doing.
Yeah, that's the answers to the how. I guess
Yeah.
we do know that because it's the same thing that we started out with at the beginning of this episode where I'm saying, like Elon Musk, he starts with this thing that on its face is believable. It
Right.
sounds
Right.
reasonable to
Right.
see from point one to point two, and then
Right.
maybe from point two to point three, and then at the end of it, you're claiming that vaccines cause hurricanes or something,
Yeah. I mean,
or that we didn't go to the moon, or that all these other rabbit hole conspiracy theories. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's like you're trying to make an argument in good faith at the start. And then you're just asking them to take, well, okay, one more step with me. I know it might sound crazy, but just one more step. And you do that enough, and you get these crazy conspiracies and the people who believe them.
Yeah, and then you based on that you have you have more logical fallacies. I can't think of the name, but there's the logical fallacy. This is the hardest one for me. It's when it happens to all of us whenever we're talking with someone that we disagree with, where they just throw so much at you
Yeah.
that you cannot, and they sprinkle in facts in there, but you
Right.
cannot hit all of them, right? And to anybody else who's paying attention to it, who's
Yeah.
on their side, it looks realistic. It makes sense. It follows.
Right. It's why people listen to
You're gonna say
not
Alex Jones again?
I wasn't gonna say Alex Jones.
Okay.
I was gonna say like Jordan P. Peterson or
Right. Same thing. Same
Ben
thing.
Shapiro. Those guys.
Ben Shapiro's a great one.
They are notorious for, I'm gonna throw 400 facts into the next 12 seconds of speaking.
Right.
Facts.
Right.
And one or two of them at the outset will definitely be true that everyone
Right.
can agree with, and then I'm just going to kind of blur the lines for the rest of this.
Yeah.
And at the other end of the tunnel, I'm going to make you feel like you're stupid for not seeing it my way, even though like you said, half the stuff that they said didn't make any sense, isn't related, or is a logical fallacy or something else.
Yeah, exactly.
But I will say they convince a lot of people that they are the intellectuals in the room on a given subject.
Oh, people think Ben Shapiro is the philosopher of our time, but Jordan Peterson is
they think
and
they
I'm
think he's
certainly
Descartes.
I'm certainly not out here claiming I am. I mean, I would get crushed in a debate against Ben Shapiro because I am not built in the way to use logical fallacies as good as he uses them.
Yeah.
I would look like I'm getting destroyed.
I would crush Ben Shapiro in a debate, but it's because I would lose my temper and then I'd just
You literally
beat him
crush him?
mercilessly.
Okay, all right. Well, we don't condone violence on the Blue Sedition podcast.
I'm a pacifist, but those are the feelings that rage within me.
Yeah, I mean it's just so hard. Those people are so good at using fallacies to their advantage. It's almost impossible to counter them. It's just so difficult.
Well, yeah, and to go back to talking about Twitter and Elon, it's even more so when you can't get your voice out there.
Right.
So if I was in a debate with Ben Shapiro and my microphone didn't work, well, I'm not going to convince anyone in the room, regardless of whether I'm making good sense or not. It's the same thing, like you're saying on these social networks. If you're not allowed to speak, well, then you're never going to get your voice out there. No one's ever going to hear your point of view.
Exactly. Well, listen, I think this is a logical stopping point before we keep going on about conspiracy theories. I think 9/11 was like literally next on the list. If we spent another 3 minutes on this podcast, I think we're going to be going to.
It was on the tip of my tongue, but I abstained.
All right. Well, that's good. Okay. I think that's a good point to, what should we call it? I was thinking, you know what? Never mind. I'm going to leave the title for today's episode to some little afterthought. I had some, I'll think about it after.
Right.
Thanks everyone for tuning in to the first video episode. Hopefully we didn't spend too much time saying, look at the screen for all of you that listen to us on Apple and Spotify. We'll work on that. We'll make sure we understand the balance going forward. But thanks everybody for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
And for your YouTube guys, give us a like, subscribe, and leave us a comment.
Wherever I don't know where it goes, but I think the bell is over here.
I see
other
know where
YouTubers
I am in the
do.
layout, so I'm going to point here.
I can see. Well, that's pretty good. I'm going to point here. Okay. I think that's safe. All right. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.